three full lessons. We're going to repeat some, or refresh, I shouldn't say repeat, refresh as we look at Revealed. Today's lesson is on the Master Menorah. Are you get comfortable? Is everybody comfortable? Everybody comfortable? We may be here a little while. We're not. This is not as long a lesson as some of our others, but it depends on how fast you draw, I guess. Okay. So yeah, if you don't have a handout, there's about 5 blanks to fill in if you would like to do that type of thing. You get some blank paper. If you ever wanted to doodle while the preacher's preaching, this is the time, okay? You're going to doodle together. We can do this together. All right? Okay, let's look at this. So the book of Revelation rests on 3 solid supports, kind of like the Trinity. Remember, we kind of left off with that in our last lesson. And when you see that foundation, you understand how the pieces fit together. Your ability to comprehend both the individual elements of Revelation and the relationship with each other began to make a whole new sense. So what are these 3? There's 3 supports. It's kind of like a tripod. If you have a camera, you can put it on a tripod. If you have 4 legs, it's never level. But when you have 3, you can always get it level, no matter what type of terrain you're on. If you have 2, it's always leaning. But if you have 3, you can be leveled no matter what terrain, no matter what the circumstance. So the Trinity is always level. Well, the book of Revelation is the same way. There's 3 supports. What are they? Number 1, the book of Revelation is a Hebraic text. Hebraic, that's your first blank there. So that means that it communicates on 4 levels at the same time. Remember that we learned that in our first lesson. Hebraic language and culture will communicate on 4 different levels at the same time. Looking at the text through Hebrew eyes, as we've been doing for the last few weeks, the words of Revelation also communicate other deeper and more intimate understandings. Again, we're speaking on different levels. We'll look at covenant. We'll look at menorah. It speaks on 4 different levels, and we'll look at all of those before we're finished. Am I going too fast? Okay. So what's number 2? Number 2 is the book of Revelation follows the foundation of the what? Menorah. We've looked at that several times now. God has taken an image that was thoroughly familiar with ancient Hebrews and expanded on it to serve as the underlying framework for this book. The particular image is no longer familiar to most modern non-Hebraic people, but it's usually a part of the teachings, how to diagram the book of Revelation from a Hebraic standpoint. So once you put that framework in place, once you understand that, when you get that, you can hang every major event in the book of Revelation and its appropriate spot. And we're going to do that before we're done tonight, okay? And then you'll see exactly where every major event fits in relation to every other major event throughout prophecy, throughout the end time, whether it's in the book of Ezekiel or Daniel or Joel, or even Amos. So we're going to find those as we go through here. So the beauty of the book of Revelation is that every end-time biblical prophecy is hung on the same menorahs. Every one of them. Everyone, from Old, New Testament, whatever you want to call it, every one of them. So you can see them detailed. We're going to look at them in a chronological view, according to Hebraic chronological view, a biblical eschatology that's laid out. I mean, that's end times, study of end times, okay? So in fact, books like Daniel and Zechariah and Ezekiel and Joel and Amos, those prophecies, we're going to see those, the prophecies in Deuteronomy we looked at last week. Did you looking at Deuteronomy 28 last Sunday? I don't know if this is a compliment or not. Somebody... We do Facebook Live, we do YouTube. We have about between 82 and 87 every Sunday who are watching, not here in church, but are watching. And one man got a word back to me and goes, "Man, that was so good, I didn't even fall asleep." I think that was a compliment. I don't know. So when we look at these judgments, everybody wakes up for the judgments. We don't always wake up for the blessings, but we want to be sure we're not falling under judgment, I guess. So even in some of the later dated prophecies, we're going to see as well, hang on these menorahs. They're all can be laid on the structure. So that's menorah. Number 3 an understanding of Revelation requires a good understanding of the basic types of covenant. So let me say it again. If you don't know covenant, you don't know Scripture. You won't understand Scripture. There's 7 covenants, 4 types. When we looked at counter covenants the last time we were together, there were 7 counter covenants to go with every covenant, and we'll see how they fit on the menorah next time. So you've got to understand covenant. Everybody understands covenant, right? At least to some degree. We could spend the rest of the year and not even cover it. It's so important. So the primary conceptual metaphor on which Revelation rests is the ancient Hebraic or Hebrew marriage covenant. So we're going to be talking about the marriage covenant tonight, as well as the menorah. Everybody there? So I think that's all your blanks to fill until we get toward the end. Is that all right? Those are to wake you up. Now you got to pay attention. Pretty good deal, right? Okay, so let's put the structure together. Get your pens and paper out. We're going to be there in just a moment. To summarize what we've said so far, I know it's kind of been spread out with all this craziness that's going on. Revelation rests on 3 sound pillars to support and can only be understood by understanding, considering each of those pillars in context. Context is so important. If you've been in any of our Thursday night classes, our school of ministry, you understand if you don't look at the context, you don't know what the Scripture is saying. So we have to look at this in context. So remember, there's 3. There's the Hebraicness of this passage or this book, which again, it's a Hebrew book, not a Greek book. Its structures links to the menorah, and we've got to understand Hebraic covenant, especially the betrothal or the marriage covenant. The betrothal covenant represents what God it's always been God's goal for His people, to be married to Him. We say marry, but to be in that type of covenant. So Revelation functions as several things. First of all, it's a roadmap. It's a timetable of events. It's a travel guide for us. All of those rolled into one. It shows you where you are, where we're going next, where we should be watching, what we should be watching as we journey to the time of Yeshua's return. He's coming back. I mean, He's coming back. So we need to be prepared as we get close. So even with all of that, many biblical scholars still miss certain events entirely in the book of Revelation. They think, well, that's just allegorical, or that doesn't fit. It all fits. It is literal and allegorical, but there's a literalness to all of this. So they miss out, or they concentrate on surface issues and miss the layered meanings. We're going to try to cover all of that in the next few weeks. Again, we're going to put that structure together tonight. Don't leave out the context. You have to understand context. Okay? And when we do that, we'll discover some deeper truths to a lot of this stuff here. So many studies in the book of Revelation try to put it into this preconceived Western Greek schematic. It's not Western. It's not Greek. So everything, if you haven't learned it from a Hebraic order or a Hebraic point of view, a lot of what we're going to look at is probably going to be new to you, or maybe hard to understand. So I'm going to do my best to make it simple. Is that okay? Yes. If that's not simple enough, please stop me. It would be like trying, if we don't understand it in its Hebrew context, it'd be like trying to illustrate the battles of the Civil War with a map of China. It just doesn't work, right? So fortunately, God, He's the one who's done this. He Himself is a master builder, and He's provided a structural framework for all of this. And He gave us part of this to the craftsman Bezalel in the Old Testament, way back in the wilderness. Remember that? When He commissioned him to build the tabernacle and all the furnishings, God commissioned him, filled him with the Holy Spirit. God chose to equip Bezalel to hammer the first menorah out of a 90-pound piece of gold. Now, I don't know about, I'd just like to have a 90-pound piece. I'd like to have a 9-pound piece of gold. 9 ounce, I don't know. So God is into quality. Okay, people say, well, it just doesn't matter. God doesn't care. God does care. He's into quality. He's into quality. I mean, you take one piece of gold and you have 7 lampstands and they're hollow and the oil can flow through all of them. That's quality. That's quality. So God chose Bezalel. He equipped him with a spirit of quality. Then He expanded the concept and showed it to Ezekiel. And Ezekiel expanded it with chapters 1 through 10 and the wheel in the middle of the wheel. And then ultimately he gives it to John, the Apostle John, on the island of Patmos, where he sees the 7 golden lampstands or menorahs here in Revelation 1 and 1 through 3. So we're going to examine this framework. You ready? You got your pen out? You got your blank page? Grab a pencil. I want you to draw a picture of a menorah. A picture of a menorah. Hopefully it's going to look similar to something like this. Okay? Now we're going to draw 5 pictures tonight. Okay? So make sure you got enough paper. Draw a menorah. Keep your version simple. Make it large enough to spread out across your page. But leave plenty of room at the top. Also leave some space between the branches. Okay, just kind of like this. For many years, the image has been the official symbol of the state of Israel. The menorah has. And many millions of people have seen this. They viewed it without really realizing what they're looking at. So if the word menorah doesn't bring a clear image of you, think of the symbol of Israel. Okay, not the Star of David, but the symbol of Israel. Okay, have you got your menorah drawn? My part's going to be short. Your part may be long tonight. Okay. Are we there? Okay, now once you've got that much on paper, starting at the farthest point to the right. What is that? There we go. All the way over here on the right. Okay, starting at the farthest point to the right, the branch over on the right, I want you to draw a smaller menorah directly on top of that branch, with the upward pointing branch of the large menorah extending directly into the shamash. Okay? You got that? So essentially the right hand, the rightmost branch of the large menorah becomes the shamash for the first mini menorah. So this one right here is going to be the center branch of this next one. You can draw one right here. Everybody got that? Next, add a small menorah to the top of the remaining 2. These 2 here. Do the same thing. This is the shamash. This is the shamash. Okay, the center. So that'll be the center of that. The third. This is the center of the second. This is the center of the first mini menorah you're going to write. Everybody got that? Leave the center one for a moment. Leave that center one blank for a moment. But pay special attention to one more detail as you work, and that's it. Starting with the first mini menorah on the right, make sure that its leftmost branch emerges to the central branch of the mini menorah. Something like this. Is that what yours looks like? Does it resemble that at all? You're great, okay? You got extra paper so you can draw it out again. Okay? So that's the right half. We talked about the right half. Whose covenants are on the right side? God's. So this is the right half. This is the half of the compound. We're going to call the 7 menorahs together the compound menorah. Give me a big smile when you got that drawn. If they're not drawn there, you're not going to smile. Still drawn? What color crayon do you need next there? All right. Now at the very center, draw menorah number 4, like right up there at the top. Draw this one up here. So now you'll have 4. Okay. All of its 7 branches extending straight up But again, the shamash, the middle, the shamash of the original menorah extends right through the shamash of the fourth one. See how that works. Anybody finished? Okay, we're a little more than halfway done. So now do the exact same thing in reverse by drawing them on the left side. Okay. Start with on the extreme left, create a mini menorah, a mirror image what you've drawn on the right side so far, and when you're finished, your drawing should look something like this right here. So at this point, you should have a total of how many? 7 menorahs resting on the 6 branches of the original menorah on the central shamash, central branch, all coming together. Is that what yours looks like? Would you just like me to give you a handout of one already done? Yeah. I've got them right here. You always want somebody else to do it for you, yeah. So the master menorah now has how many lights on it? 7 sevens or 49. So they're arranged in 7 groups of 7. Each of these events listed in the book of Revelation fit somewhere on one of these lights. Everything in the book of Revelation is going to fit up here. So once you begin to put them in the proper places, you're going to immediately see the patterns that begin to take place that weren't so obvious before. Essentially, the master menorah, the big one is a road map that we have already mentioned. We talked about it being a road map, and which groups related events together and arranges them more or less in chronological order. It also separates them visually and allows us to see pretty clearly a distinction between each group there. So also, just as each separate light here of God's original menorah was lit from the center, which is called the shamash, in order from right to left, okay? The events in Revelation on the right side of this master menorah will occur in the same sequence from right to left. Everybody still with me? Some are still drawing. Do I need to give you more time? I don't want to rush you.
If you turn sideways, I can get the profile.
All right. I wonder what one we're going to hang you on. All right. Are we ready to progress? Yes. We don't want to digress. So if you look closely, what have you got? You've got a master menorah. You have a total of 7 menorahs attached there. Okay, so starting at the right side, the left branch of each mini menorah leads directly into the shamash of the next one. Do you see what I'm talking about here? So starting over here, this far to the left goes right into the shamash of this one. All the way to the left goes in the shamash of that one. All the way to the left goes in the shamash of the central one. You see that? And that way the very last event, okay, in each of these groups of 7 leads to the next event. And we get to these, it'll lead to, this last one leads to the next 7 events. And this one will lead to the next 7 events. So we'll be able to see chronologically how this all plays out in Scripture, you'll really be able to understand the book of Revelation pretty well. So maybe the most dynamic example of what happens at the right side leading to the left side would be in 2 verses in Revelation chapter 8 where the seventh seal flows. Let's look at this. So when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour, and I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. So as always, the Bible provides us its own best example. It's its best commentary on the Bible is the Bible. So this text kind of illustrates here that many menorahs are linked together. When one ends, I'll go back to that one. When one event ends, it begins the next series of events. So in this example, after the 30 minutes of silence that follows the opening of the 7th seal, it starts the 7 trumpet judgments. Okay? Then we'll go from 7 trumpets to 7 bowls and all of those. And again, we're going to put all that on here before we go. So what? I mean, that makes it pretty clear, right? You're not going to commit to anything right now. I could tell. So there's threeism, so many threeisms of God, the Trinity of God. So numerous triads or trinities are found in Scripture to support God and God's creation. For example, on the first day, God created 3 things. Anybody remember what He created the first day? Time and space and matter. 3 things on the first day, which are often separated by time, space, matter continuum in life. So each of those then can be understood by recognizing that it's defined by 3 separate aspects apart. So space, how do we define space? Height, width, and depth, right? This is not an accident. The guy's done all this. Time, past, present, and future, right? How do we define matter? This is liquid, gas, or solid. So isn't that amazing how God has set all the universe up, how it all fits back and it all ties into the book of Revelation here. So God is the 4th aspect that binds all the others together. It's interesting that He also created 4 elementary forces that hold everything together in the smallest physical level and the larger. So He made gravity, right? Does gravity have any importance? He made electromagnetic attraction. He made the greater atomic force, which keeps the nuclear atoms together, and the lesser atomic force, which keeps the atoms of creation in an orderly manner. So that's how we have life. That's how things are sustained and progress here on earth. So let's go on. Let's look at the Shamash chapter. So the center, let me go back for a moment here. So the center of these, if these are groupings, the center is the Shamash chapter in the book of Revelation that reveals what's going on. There are Shamash chapters. So there's 7 mini menorahs represent the 7 different groups of related events. We just looked at that, right? So the seals, the trumpets, the bowls, there's 7 events. The chapter that it reveals that is what we're going to put a Shamash chapter. So we'll label these the different chapters of the book of Revelation. So when you put these together, the 7 groups, they're not arranged in our Western orientation of what we would consider perfect sequence. We are linear, right? We want things to have a definite beginning and a definite ending, right? You knew what time I started. You're just wondering what time I'm going to finish, right? So yeah, we like that. But we're going to look at a Hebraic or an Eastern orientation. And when you do that, it makes perfect sense. It's not linear; it's circular, and so we're going to look at that. So starting from right to left, the 7 menorahs are groups are these. Let's see. Okay, you can start labeling those. So the first one is the letters, right? The letters to the churches. There's how many letters are there in Revelation 1 and 2? 7. So the first one is the letters. Then we have the seals. Okay. The third would be the trumpets. And we can go ahead and go to the top. The thunders. The top. The 5th is the bowl judgments. 6th is the angelic proclamations. And finally, the evil kingdoms. So the main portion of Revelation is organized into 7 sections. Each section has this introductory chapter, which we would call the Shamash chapter, and a portion of that describes the 7 events that are going to take place in that setting, in the grouping. So we see in the first chapter, the second chapter of Revelation, there's 7, say this to the 7 churches which are in Asia, right? So it's the Shamash chapter. It tells us what's going to take place in those next 2 chapters. So, am I going too fast? You're still writing? Okay. So you look at the other side of that, for many decades, people have tried to view Revelation as a disorganized book. In fact, I was talking to some of the ministers here in the community. They're talking about it's so disorganized. There's no rhythm to it, and so it's just confusing to a lot of people. But again, that's not from the Hebraic perspective. Ironically, a lot of people say the same things about the prophetic books, like Isaiah. Or Ezekiel, or Joel. Luckily, Joel's a short book. Otherwise, everybody would be confused, right? If you don't look at it in the right perspective. So even though not everyone instantly recognizes or even receives the prophetic and chronological flow, this book is not a book of random. It is in complete order, and I'm anxious for you to see that. Have you got this part filled out? So on all these books, they do have a logical chronology to them, and so does the book of Revelation, believe it or not. If you've read through it, you probably are wondering how. But again, you have to understand order from the Eastern point of view. So this is what we call the 7 sevens of Revelation, the chapter Menorah. Everybody got that one? Would you like me to give you a handout of that too? I've got them right here. I just need somebody to come help pass them out, right? So this shows, next we're going to see how all 22 chapters of Revelation fit on here. You ready to see that? They're all going to fit. It shows how all 22 chapters of Revelation can be overlaid directly on this master menorah, but only when you position the chapters in the proper places, the proper perspectives. So you can truly see then how they relate one to another. They interrelate with one another. And why is that true? Well, to repeat what we've said earlier, and I've said many times, because the book of Revelation is a Hebrew book, it doesn't proceed from start to finish without going sideways sometimes. And you say, well, I just wish it would be linear. Well, Hebrew authors are kind of like to insert additional commentary. You like that. I mean, that's what happens when you watch a movie. They have flashbacks, right? They show you things that they hadn't shown you in the beginning to help catch you up. If you've ever read the book Moby Dick, right? You'll remember that Herman Melville did exactly the same thing. So the numbers above the mini menorahs in this picture, see that? They identify the chapters that directly correspond to the events that are going on in the mini menorah. So these right here, chapters 2 and 3 above this, tell exactly what's going on in these events. See the above it. Okay, so on the right side, they represent the events as they occur in chronological order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At the same time, the numbers below the mini menorahs, see in the Shamash? Those are the Shamash chapters. So chapter 1 is going to tell you what's taking place in chapters 2 and 3. John saw 7 golden candlesticks. He writes the letters to the 7 churches. That's all in chapter 1. It tells you what's going to take place in these events. You go to chapters 4 and 5, it tells you what's going to take place in the seals, 7 seals. This is what's going to happen. And then chapters 6 through 8 take you through that, okay? Is that clear? Everybody got that? Okay, we'll go forward. So these Shamash chapters are preparatory. They're portions of, or maybe some of them are portions of chapters. They kind of elaborate about what's going to take place. So God always gives you an introduction. Sometimes He reveals who the players are going to be in that event, and then He gives you the event. Kind of like Genesis. People say, well, God must not have created Adam and Eve because He doesn't talk about them till the second chapter and third chapter. It's repeating. Remember, He lays out this Hebraic, so He lays out the introduction, what He's going to do, and He tells you what He's doing. Okay, that's how the book of Revelation is. Would you like a handout of this? I just happen to have one. If somebody would just come and help pass them out, we can do that. All right? So, we've got all the different, everything you've drawn, I've got pictures of. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
There's the judgments, here's the chapters. That's just a compound menorah there.
Are you capable? I don't know.
Now, nobody is grading your art project, okay? Just take a deep breath. Nobody's grading your art project. But you learned something that you wouldn't have learned if somebody had given it to you, right? You learn by doing. The Bible says if you just hear the word, you've deceived yourself. You have to do the word, right? And you did it. And guess what? You can do it. And we did it together. Everybody get those handouts? Now be honest, how many of you, yours looked exactly like the handout? All right. We got some artists. In your mind you did. Yeah, mine too. It just gets lost from here to here, right? Look at that. Excellent. Everybody get those? So to repeat from lesson 1, I know it's several weeks ago now, but repeat from lesson 1, the center lamp of the menorah was referred to as the Ner Tamid, or the eternal light. Remember Leviticus chapter 24, we looked at that. And this particular light is also called the Shamash, or the servant light. Remember that? I know it was several weeks ago now. We looked at lesson 1. Why was it called the servant light, or the Shamash? Because it was used to rekindle the remaining 6 lights of the menorah whenever they were trimmed. Whenever they would trim the wick, the center, the Shamash, the servant light would rekindle or light those. So the Hebrew word for let you pass those out. Everybody get one? Watch out there. Oh. All right, everybody good? Three. I guess there's 3. Yes. So the Shamash. I know you're comparing your artwork, but if you listen, we can get through here real quick. Okay. The Shamash lights the other 6, right? You're still looking at your artwork. I tell you what, take it home and put it on your refrigerator, okay? We're just having fun. Are you still having fun? Yes. You know, when you laugh and you learn better. It stays with you, okay? Okay, we're back to Shamash. Shamash is the center part, right? It lights the others. So if you're looking at numeric or numerism, number 6 is the number of what? Number of man. Okay, the 7th is God, who's the Shamash. He has the fire. He lights us, right? He is the truth, the life, the way. He is the light of the world. Thank you, gentlemen, for passing those out. You should have just passed them out at the very beginning and say to everybody this. I'm just playing with you. Just playing with you. So Shamash, guess what? Guess what, Shamash? Guess what the Shamash is our word for, or the Hebrew word for son is Shamash. Or a root of the word would be Shimshon. So let me just give you a side road here. Can we run down a side road? Shimshon is the name, what we call in English, Samson. So Samson's name, Shimshon, means of the light. Guess what Delilah's name means? Of the darkness. He had no business. What business is light with darkness? Didn't the Bible tell us that somewhere? So when you understand, again, understanding Hebraic, you understand it. So the son, the son, our word for son comes from Shamash, and the sun is considered the servant light to our natural world. Guess what? The sun was created on the fourth day. The Shamash. You think that's a coincidence? I don't either. So just as the Shamash holds us the fourth position in the Menorah, the sun was created on the fourth day to give light to our natural world, showing us again, God is a God of order. He is really smart. He is really smart. So ancient Hebrew rabbis, I think my battery just went out. Okay, that's all the pictures, but I'll help you fill in the blanks, okay? Yep. It would help if I could see. That's all right. We just got a couple more blanks to fill in, right? So ancient Hebrew, we've got all the pictures drawn, and you've got them there anyway. If you need another picture, we got handouts. So ancient Hebrew rabbis have suggested the Shamash position represents Messiah. Messiah, your next blank there. So the Shamash is also called, are you ready for this? Plumb line. The plumb line from Zechariah chapter 4. A plumb line is used in construction as a true level for establishing the foundation of a new building, just as Messiah's life should be the true and correct foundation for our lives. So the Shamash position represents Messiah, and the Shamash is also called the plumb line. Yeshua is the source of strength and light, and he brings glory to the Father. So in other words, what Shamash chapters provide introduction, they give background information, they set the scene for us. Matthew, are you still up there? Can you go ahead and advance that? My battery went out. Maybe you can do that. Yeah, there you go. Go to the next slide. There we go. All right. He's right on the ball. Now go to the next one there. Okay, so the Shamash is also called the plumb line. Now go to the next one. Okay, Shamash chapters right there. They provide introduction. They give background information. They set the scene for us so that we can better understand the 7 events that follow every one of these mini menorahs. So how do they do that? Well, that's exactly where it begins to get exciting. Shamash chapters, go ahead and go to that next slide. There you go. They give us a series of mini revelations. Many revelations. Many of those mini revelations are sometimes slightly understood and sometimes completely misunderstood. They're seldom seen in our Western culture for what they really are. And as the mini menorah action chapters of Revelation detail the end time events that'll be going on one by one in chronological order. Again, when the seventh on the first mini menorah starts, the first on the next mini menorah. So the Shamash chapters introduce the main players. They introduce the participants. An entirely big event that's going to soon be taking place in those next couple of chapters. So at first, It's happening somewhat behind the scenes, but eventually it winds up way out in the open as we get into the book of Revelation. There's no competition at all, no obscurity at all, as we understand that. So in fact, we could compare Revelation to a movie. I was talking about that earlier, where both flashbacks and cutaways, they tell these parallel stories. If you like mysteries, you're trying to guess because they have these flashbacks and they cut away to something else. That's what the book of Revelation does. It's kind of a mysterious thing. Some people think it is a mystery, but God does reveal it to us. Please understand, God does reveal this to us. So from a storytelling perspective, the goal of a lot of movie makers is to keep you in suspense till the very end, right? The whodunits. They don't want you to figure it out till the very end. Even as they're trying to keep you reaching for more information, keep you glued to the end of the seat, they want to keep you hooked so you know what's going on in the end. Now, the book of Revelation that does almost the same thing, except that we seldom realize is playing out that way. It doesn't look like it, but you're going to realize it does. We don't fully recognize the information be given to us the first time it's given to us until we realize that is a Shamash chapter. That is telling us what's going to take place the next 2 to 3 chapters. So we don't always track the parallel lines, but it's all going to play out. I promise you, it's all going to play out. So the big event that starts out the background of Revelation is what's commonly known as, go to that next slide there, the wedding of the Lamb. How many of you have heard that before? Yes. The wedding of the Lamb. And the Shamash chapters that introduce that to us, they begin in Revelation 1, and then Revelation 4 and 5, and they do that by introducing the main players. Who are the main players in all of this? The groom, and the father, and eventually the bride. Everybody likes a love story, right? So now you got mystery, you got adventure, you got a love story. If we look close enough, we probably have cowboys and Indians in there somewhere, right? So I promise this is good. You're going to enjoy this because it's all going to start. It's already making a little more sense. Hopefully it does. So along the way, these Shamash chapters are going to provide some incredible information that we probably never noticed before. We probably overlooked it before. And that's because the background information really doesn't make sense unless you're looking to as it introducing the events that are going to take place, such as on the Menorah. So all of this makes these Shamash chapters much more exciting than they might seem as we look at them at first glance. So it's kind of like what am I trying to say? It's kind of like the dates at Major League Ballpark. If you want to know the players, have you ever gone to a ball game, Ranger game, whatever? You get there, and the first thing they want to do is they've got to sell you a program. You can watch the game, but if you really want to know what's going on, you got to buy our program, right? These guys, you got to get a program, or at least you got to open the one you have. If you want to know what's going on, that's what the book of Revelation is. God, I promise you, when you get done, God is speaking so clearly about what's going to take place. Maybe what's already taking place. And it's very, very clear if we understand it in this way. And I'm excited for you to do that. So when it comes to understanding Revelation, perhaps the ultimate irony of all of this would be that you never dream of trying to get. Some of us are trying to like going on a trip on vacation from Texas to Rhode Island and looking at a map of Argentina to get there. And we're thinking, well, it doesn't make sense. Well, of course not. And so as we look at this, we unfold this, unpack this, just like you began to, after you drew that first menorah, the second one you were really confused, right? And then when you saw the right half, then the left half came real clear, right? And then when you understand the groups, then putting the chapters there makes sense, right? Every step of the way, you're going to, hey, I can't believe I didn't understand it before. And it's so good. It's so good. So for some reason, people want to complicate this. I've told you before, especially in our Pie with Pastor, let's not read the book of Revelation yet. Now's the time. Now's the time to understand it. So the truth is, we really need to look to God, no further than God himself. God is going to reveal what he's written in his book by what he's already written in his book. Is that confusing? The best commentary on the Bible is the Bible. It's not your favorite preacher. It's not your pastor. It's the Bible. Okay? Understand that. I make mistakes. I know you probably have a hard time believing that, but I make mistakes. I just did, right? Yeah, I make mistakes. So once we begin to see how his God's very own creation, this master menorah, is the foundation and the structure of all these end time events, and we also find out that we can overlay every other end time events. And now we're not going to go to all these, but you can. You can go to Ezekiel. You can go to Daniel. You can go to Joel. You can go to Amos. You can go to Deuteronomy. We're going to be in Deuteronomy 28. Probably, if not next time, then the time out, the following week we'll be in Deuteronomy 28. But you can lay all of those events on this menorah. We already looked at Deuteronomy 28 a little bit last Sunday. All the events that are taking place in some of these judgments are found in Deuteronomy chapter 28. So it's all going to make sense, all coming together. You're going to be you're going to do so well. So Joel is, for instance, the book of Joel is an embellishment on trumpets 6 and 7. You knew that already, right? Yeah, you knew that. Okay, so we'll look at that in a couple of weeks. So in addition to the master menorah, paired up with these events here, we're gonna look at some incredible things that are going to take place. Hopefully, if we're understanding the Bible correctly at all, hopefully we're all going to be out of here when most of this takes place. But now listen to me, we're not promised that, and that's where I'll leave you hanging. All right. Any questions what we looked at so far? Yes.
If you were going to read these to help understand, would you start from chapters 2 and 3 and go backwards, or would you go from?
No, you have to go to the Shamash chapter first, and that will, like chapter 1 on the far right, the very first menorah, chapter 1 underneath the menorah, and then chapters 2 and 3. So chapter 1 is the introduction of what's going to take place in 2 and 3. That's for the final menorah. That's a big menorah, the master menorah. That'll be at the very end. So you start on the right, you go all the way to the top to 4 and down to 7, and then we're going to look at the master menorah as it concludes there. Good question. Any other questions? Is it clear? Yes.
I've got a kind of question that's off topic, sort of, but I've talked to a lot of people, and well, not a lot, but anyway, they're wondering about their children and the rapture.
What are they wondering?
Well,
Yeah.
the way I understood it is that your name is erased from the Lamb's Book of Life.
Your name?
Rapture, what's going to happen to kids that aren't old enough to have made a decision for Christ.
You can turn it on. So,